All right, folks, buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into the world of cycling with a deep dive on a bike that's more than just a pretty frame, the 2009 Colnago CLX. We're talking white, black, and blue carbon fiber goodness, people. So whether you're a diehard cyclist or just curious about what makes this bike so special, stick around, because we're about to break it all down.
Yeah, this is going to be fun.
Now, this isn't just any Colnago, right? We're talking a 2009 model. What immediately springs to mind when we talk about a 2009 bike? Is it vintage? Is it retro? Or is it just, well, old?
I'd say it's definitely got that vintage appeal. I mean, 2009, that's like 15 years ago. Technology has moved on quite a bit. But
Yeah.
Colnago back then, they already had this reputation. You know, this wasn't some fly-by-night brand just slapping bikes together. When you saw that Colnago logo, you knew you were dealing with some serious Italian craftsmanship.
It's true. And this particular bike, the CLX, it was smack dab in the middle of their lineup back then. Not their most expensive top-of-the-line model, but definitely not an entry-level ride either.
Yeah.
So who is this bike aimed at? Who is the target audience for the CLX?
You hit the nail on the head there. It's all about the target rider. Colnago, they weren't just chasing after the pro racers with this one. They were aiming for what I like to call the serious enthusiast. You know, the rider who knows their stuff, appreciates quality, but doesn't necessarily need the absolute cutting-edge tech. Someone who wants a taste of that Colnago magic without having to, well, remortgage their house.
That's a good way to put it. So we know it's a Colnago. We know it's not the tippy top of the range, but still aimed at discerning riders. Let's get into the nitty-gritty, the bike itself. Our source mentions Monocoque construction, integrated dropouts. Sounds impressive, but what does it actually mean?
Okay, so imagine a bike frame built like a race car chassis. That's basically what Monocoque construction is all about. Instead of welding individual tubes together, the CLX's front triangle, the main part of the frame, was molded as one solid piece of carbon fiber.
So it's like one solid piece of sculpted carbon. That's pretty high-tech, even for today.
Absolutely. And back then, it was really cutting edge. And what this meant for the rider was a frame that was incredibly lightweight and stiff. Stiffness is key, by the way, because it means every ounce of effort you put into pedaling translates directly into speed, no wasted energy.
So you're flying down the road, and every pedal stroke is maximized for speed. I like the sound of that. Now, what about those integrated dropouts? That was another term that jumped out at me from the source.
The dropout. So that's where your wheels attach to the frame. Instead of having separate, clunky metal pieces, the CLX had these smoothly sculpted dropouts that were integrated directly into the carbon fiber frame.
So it's like aesthetic and functional.
Exactly. They not only looked super sleek, but also improved aerodynamics by smoothing out the airflow around the rear wheel.
It's amazing to me how much thought goes into these details that most people wouldn't even think twice about.
Speaking of hidden details, the source also mentions the CLX used threaded bearings.
Yes, the bearings.
For those of us who aren't cycling geeks, could you give us a quick rundown on why bearings matter and what makes threaded bearings different? Bearings, they're like the unsung heroes of a smooth ride. You've got bearings in your wheels, your headset, your bottom bracket, basically anywhere something rotates on your bike.
Right.
Now, the CLX used threaded bearings, which were the standard back in 2009. They're known for being incredibly durable and relatively easy to service. You can think of them as being like bomb-proof. They can take a beating.
So they're built to last.
Exactly. Now, there's also push-fit bearings, which you see more commonly on modern high-end bikes.
And those are lighter, I imagine.
You got it.
Yeah.
Every gram counts when you're trying to shave weight off a bike, but they can be a bit trickier to service. So, with the threaded bearings, Colnago were prioritizing long-lasting performance over absolute weight savings.
Which makes sense, right? Given that this bike was aimed at the serious enthusiast, not the weight-obsessed racer. So we've talked about the frame, the construction, the bearings. But what about the components? The source specifically calls out the Shimano 105 group set.
Good eye.
Break that down for us. What's so significant about the Shimano 105?
Okay, so for those who don't know, the group set is essentially the heart and soul of your bike's performance.
Oh.
It includes your shifters, derailleurs, brakes, all the stuff that makes you go stop and change gears. And Shimano 105, even back in 2009, was a workhorse. It was known for its crisp shifting, reliable braking, and fantastic durability.
That's like the reliable daily driver of group sets, right?
Exactly. Not the flashiest or the absolute lightest, but it gets the job done and then some. Perfect for the serious enthusiast who wants top-notch performance without breaking the bank.
Okay, so we've covered the frame, the components, but at the end of the day, what really matters is how a bike rides, right? Unfortunately, we don't have a full-blown review of this bike from back in the day, but the source does mention it being stable and fun to ride, which is promising.
It is.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Based on what we know about the CLX, the frame material, the geometry, the components, paint us a picture.
Yeah.
What was it probably like to ride this bike back in 2009?
I'm happy to take a stab at that. So picture this. You're rolling out on the CLX. The first thing you notice is how light and responsive it feels. It just wants to go.
I like where this is going.
That stiff carbon frame, it transfers your power to the pedals efficiently, so when you stomp on the gas, the bike surges forward. But it's not just about speed. That stable geometry, those threaded bearings, they all work together to inspire confidence, whether you're bombing down a descent or navigating a tricky corner. This was a bike that could handle it all, from rolling hills to fast flats, winding country roads to the occasional sprint for a town line.
Sounds like a true all-rounder.
Absolutely. And with that Shimano 105 group set, you knew every shift was going to be crisp, every brake was going to be there when you needed it. It was a bike that just disappeared beneath you, allowing you to focus on the pure joy of riding.
So to wrap things up, it sounds like the 2009 Colnago CLX was more than just a pretty frame. It was a bike designed for a very specific type of rider, one who appreciated quality, performance, and yes, a touch of Italian flair.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And you know, what's really cool is that even today, this bike would still hold its own. Sure, it might not have all the bells and whistles of the latest carbon fiber rocket ships, but that's kind of the beauty of it, isn't it?
It's a classic.
Exactly. If you ever get the chance to throw a leg over a 2009 CLX, do it. You might be surprised at how relevant its ride and feel remain, even in today's world of cycling.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Big thanks to our expert for breaking down the details of this iconic bike. Until next time, folks, keep those pedals turning.